I'd like to call this meeting, work session to order. If you can please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and salute to the state flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, and see a symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Thank you. Commissioner Salas won't be attending today's work session as I think he's stuck in an airport there in Dallas and he might be boarding now, so he won't be attending today. Next item on the agenda is approval of work session agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the work session agenda as presented.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Billings. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Next part of the agenda is public input. The general purpose of the county work session is to inform the Grant County Board of Commissioners of the agenda items that will be addressed at the next regular meeting, and for the department heads and other elected officials to communicate with commissioners in regards to matters in their respective departments. In accordance with Grant County Resolution number R-19-34, we welcome public input limited to agenda items only and will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker. Do we have anyone for public speaking? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. County reports.
Mr. Chairman, Commission members, the Grant County Detention report, the reporting period of October 16th to October 30th. There's an update on item number 1, detention facility update. We have 1 vacancy. The only update on that, our vacancies. Training updates are Galindo's. All 5 of the newly hired officers currently starting their 160 hours of basic training. The inmate art, the status remains the same. Community report, I attended the Accreditation Council meeting on October 23rd. Recognition programs, we're waiting nominations. The arrest totals for October 16th to October 30th. Silver City Police Department 18, Grant County Sheriff Department 17, New Mexico State Police 8, Barrett Police 1, Santa Clara 1, none for Hurley, none for probation and parole, and there were 3 walk-ins at the Grant County Detention Center. On October 30th, there were 50 detainees awaiting court proceedings. 21 were sentenced to Grant County Detention Center. 3 are sentenced to the Department of Corrections. 5 are awaiting transport to rehab. And none of them are being held for any facilities, and we have no parolees being held currently. No detainees are pending transfer to any out-of-state facility or transport to any federal facility. Detention facility head count, October 30th, the head count on that day was 83. Currently today, we have 83 again. That's the current head count for today. Average monthly population for October 16th to October 30th is 86. Special management report for October 30th was 2 males and 2 females. That's my report, sir.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
No. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Pretty much business as usual down there. We're doing a lot of tree trimming. We finally finished Hanover. They're down in Red Rock right now, in the village of Red Rock, trimming those mesquites, and we're also working on a bunch of washouts down there from the last big rain we had, getting those fixed. But other than that, it's just business as usual, working on resident complaints.
Thank you. Questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I have a few of the staff here with me, and first I want to recognize Cindy Blackman, our DWI coordinator. And I know you all received this letter from the Administrative Office of the Courts, but I'd like to read it and recognize of Ms. Blackman and the work that she's done statewide, not only here in Grant County, but statewide. So it's your dear esteemed commission members, please accept this letter of appreciation for Cindy Blackman's involvement with our recent New Mexico Court Office Basic Training course offered in Santa Fe. We greatly appreciate Cindy's participation in facilitating the ADE Offender Database Tracking and Management module. This session provided important information for county programs. As you likely know, the COVID course reflects a collaborative partnership between New Mexico County's LDWI Coordinators Affiliate, New Mexico Department of Finance Administration Local Government Division, Bureau, and the New Mexico Administration of Office of the Courts. These state agencies and organizations share a common interest in seeing the best practices of criminal justice field brought to scale in local jurisdictions where offender supervision occurs. With the class of 24 attendees nearly evenly split between court compliance officers and court surveillance officers, Cindy's investment in the week of training was essential to increasing the professionalism of misdemeanor compliance programs and problem-solving courts statewide. The course evaluators reflected the Colbert attendees' appreciation for Cindy's class as well, saying, and I quote, "Tons of useful information, gave me tools I didn't know how to properly use, and wow, very helpful class. Learned a lot and what is needed and why. Loved the class." New Mexico is a state that repeatedly has had to demonstrate collegiality and cooperation to meet public safety demands. Our court misdemeanor compliance program and problem-solving courts are just two examples of such networking. Thank you for contributing to both public safety and staff professionalism by sharing your staff with the rest of the field. Sincerely, Arthur Peepin, Director, Administrative Court, Office of the Courts. So I just wanted to read that, and I wanted to thank Cindy for all the work that she does in Grant County and also around the state. As they use her as kind of a model to how to conduct the DWI program. And I know we don't hear from her a lot, but behind the scenes she does a lot of work for Grant County, and so I just want to recognize her for that. So thank you. I know that she's on the agenda, so if there's any, she has a meeting today. So if there's anything, questions about what's on the agenda, she'd be more than willing to answer that.
Thank you. Thank you, Cindy.
Thanks for doing that. Thank you, Cindy.
And then next, the Correcaminos Director, Kim Dominguez, is going to talk a little bit about some evaluations that were done with her program as well.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. So New Mexico was chosen by FTA for audits of our transit drug and alcohol compliance programs. Correcaminos was one of the systems chosen for audit. I was interviewed on my knowledge of regulations. They reviewed our records for compliance, and the collection site we use was also audited for compliance. Correcaminos was recognized by DOT as the only audited system in the state to only receive one finding. That finding was based on the lab itself, and it was kind of a technicality. Instead of attaching a printout that comes out of their breath alcohol machine, they wrote the result in. So it was a pretty simple thing, but other than that, that was our only finding. So in other news, we're currently replacing our old wooden benches with new metal rubber coated benches around Grant County. So we'll be seeing those. Some of them are out, and we'll be seeing the rest of them out soon. So, other than that, it's been a quiet month.
Questions?
Okay, a quick one. I assume there's no issue correcting the finding and actually attaching a printout in the future?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Just want to make sure.
Yeah.
That's great news.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so just a couple other things real quick. The airport construction's in full mode. That is going. So there was an increase in employments for the month of October, 409 to Albuquerque, which was up by 37 for the month of October. So even with the construction, the service is running great. We have no issues out there that I'm aware of. So I want to thank Rebecca and her staff out there at the airport for working around that and just doing a great job of making sure that Advance Air has all the service that they need, and along with the passengers. Maintenance department, the roof units on this building will start tomorrow. It should only take them until Friday, is what they've told us. There is 8 units, so there'd be 4 on Wednesday and then 4 put up on Thursday without any, minimal distraction to the service on the HVAC units. Generator at dispatch they got a new generator that'll be put in tomorrow. Baton Park, the ADA handicap parking has been done. I hope you guys can go out there and take a look at that. On the fire side, pretty quiet on the fire side, a lot of EMS calls. So I hope to bring by the end of the year some statistics that show how many runs that our 9 fire districts are on an annual basis. I think that would help to let the public know that not all of us serve EMS, but some of us do. And some of those high populated areas like Tyrone, Whiskey Creek, Fort Baird, PA, those are all EMS, fire and EMS rescue. Whiskey Creek addition is about 99% complete. We did get our occupancy certificate last week. So there is a small punch list we're going to be looking at and hopefully getting that done. We're working on the facility for Station 5, Tyrone at Hatchita, trying to get them a facility there for a fire department. They are part of Tyrone, they're Station 5. We are leasing a building from the New Mexico DOT for, I believe it's $1 a year. But anyway, we have property out there for the Tyrone Volunteer Fire Department. So we're looking at trying to get them reestablished with the classroom and office for the chief, and then also some bays for the fire resources. So that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Questions for me?
Yeah, you talked about the airport a little bit. Are there rental cars available out there?
I don't believe that. I know that Enterprise has tried to make an effort, but I don't know how they're doing out there. But at this point, as far as Advanced Air, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Billings, there is not from Advanced Air.
Oh.
I know we talked about it in the past, and it might be something coming forward once this construction and everything is done. Might be something that Advanced would like to look into again. Unless anybody else has any comment on that.
Thanks.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. So the Tyrone ADA, the work is continuing out there. The contractor has been out there working daily. I don't know about today. We'll see with this weather, but they have been working on the main road coming in and establishing new curb and gutter and sidewalks where it didn't exist. I did see that they've done some saw cutting of a bunch of the intersections where they're going to be putting in the ADA ramps. So looks like they already had all of their locates called in and done out there. On the NMDOT call for projects North Hurley Phase 2 construction, we will be working with Bohannon Houston to get all the bidding documents together. That project will hopefully be able to bid in late winter or early spring, so we can get that project going. You guys just approved the resolution with, I think it was DOT, I'm not sure if it was DFA. Like Randy said, Whiskey Creek Volunteer Fire Addition, the substantial completion, and we're working through those punch list items. So we hope to have that one buttoned up here pretty quick. The administration parking lot, we had a little hiccup with CES getting the purchase order to Hamilton. Whenever we use CES, we issue a purchase order to CES, and then CES has to issue a purchase order to the contractor, so we had a little hiccup there. But myself and Earl have spoken with Hamilton and Southwest Concrete because concerned about the time of year. We talked with the county manager about whether we need to push it into the spring. They have assured us that they do not believe it's an issue, that we do have warm enough weather even through the winter that they can get it done without any major delays, but we'll keep you posted on that. So I just want to make sure that you guys know that's why it didn't get started on November 1st like we had hoped.
You mean the project itself, not the design?
The project itself, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the design is complete. If I stated design, I apologize on that.
No, I don't think you did. I just didn't realize we had moved to the work already.
Yes, we were hoping to have the construction start on November 1st. That was the goal. And again, we had that little hiccup with the PO. In fact, Hamilton's still working with CES on that to get it finalized. But like I said, if the paving can be done, Earl, you're probably gonna have to chime in here. Paving can be done if the temperatures are above 40?
40 and rising.
So if the temperatures are 40 and rising, then they can do the paving. Of course, the concrete work, they can do additives and then put blankets on it. So again, Charlene had come to us and said, hey, if we feel like this is going to be a major issue to get started, let's say, and then shut us down, that's not a great thing, right? Because then we've got part of the parking lot closed off. So we're working through that, but right now they're saying that they believe it can still be done. So other than that, if you have any other questions?
Questions? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I attended a Southwest Collaborative Leadership Council meeting last week. We heard updates from the different working groups. Economic Development, Priscilla gave an update on the Fort Baird lease. It's going to the State Board of Finance in December. We heard a presentation from Lee Gruber around her 5 Points initiative. I sent info to you guys on that. You were all invited to an informational meeting. I'm not sure if anyone was able to attend that. Great project that ties into the Trails Initiative as well as economic development. Outdoor recreation working group. The Forest Service is working on some trailhead improvements and also hiring a permanent trail staff. And we heard from Alex Brown is talking about their efforts to apply for FMI funds for a recreation plan. Under the Youth and Education group, Kathy Whiteman discussed her internship initiative that she's working through at WNMU. And also we heard from Martha Cooper with the Nature Conservancy, and she heads up the restoration working group, and she talked about some projects she has with the Grant Soil and Water Conservation Group. Also, we discussed giving a presentation to the legislators during the Grant County Prospectors presentation in December. So Adam and Donka, Alex Brown, Priscilla, and myself will present to the prospectors just about what the group is and how everything's tying together and how we could possibly use their support in the future. Not asking for any money at this point, just an informational presentation. I wanted to let you know that 4 of the department directors, Mike Carrillo, Misha, Earl, and Randy, will be participating in a public servant emerging leaders program. It's a 6-month program that's geared towards public sector leadership positions. So they will be participating in that program starting in January. The planning staff and myself are working on a draft ordinance that, well, I reviewed it. I said I didn't do the work. Planning staff did the work. Continue to receive complaints around falling down and vacant mobile homes throughout the county. We had drafted an ordinance a couple years ago and didn't go anywhere, so we have sent it to our current attorneys for their review. Once we get their feedback, then I'll have you guys take a look at it. It relates to the abatement of dangerous abandoned building structures, mobile homes, and it addresses the health and safety hazard that they pose. So just continue to get complaints, so we want to look at putting something in front of you for your consideration to see if we can't do something about some of those. Also last week, I met with a group organized by Don Turner. There was 8 individuals, I believe, who met with me to talk about the replacement and design of the memorial at Baton Park. They were an amazing group with a tremendous amount of passion. Each one of them had a family member that either was there or didn't make it home, as well as a tremendous amount of history. That they're just a very, very passionate group. So I would like your support to move forward with that group. They've got some really good ideas. They've done a lot of work to put together something to bring back for your consideration. Also, I am working on updating rental policies for for Baton Park as well as the fairgrounds. We've had a couple incidents at Baton Park over the last few months that are going to require tightening up our policies and our requirements. So working on that, and we'll have those reviewed by the attorney prior to putting them in front of you. Also have a meeting on Friday with Administrative Office of the Courts to start talking about Magistrate Court and looking at the Blackstreet building and possible remodeling to see if that will work for their temporary location. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
When was that last meeting?
Friday. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you for the update.
Thank you.
No, let's begin it. Thank you.
I do have one thing. So the support on going forward with the work with Don Turner on the Baton Memorial, you just mean verbal support from us, or do you need something more formal than that?
No, nothing formal. I just wanted to let you know I think that's a great group to work with, and they've done a lot of homework, and so I just would like to continue to work with that group. They've devoted a lot of time so far, and like I said, great amount of passion, and what a better group to work with, in my opinion.
So I'm in favor of that.
Me too, thanks.
Yeah, right.
Any other questions? Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next item of the agenda, review November 14, 2019 regular meeting agenda.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, first up on your agenda, you have a proclamation. It's item A, consideration of Tamal Fiesta y Mas proclamation. I'm not sure if we've received a final version. The version that was submitted needed a lot of work. We didn't feel comfortable putting that in front of you, so we sent it back. Next item is we have one set of regular meetings, October 24th, 2019 regular meeting minutes for your approval. Item C, consideration of November 7th, 2019 expenditure report. We have Sam Hernandez here to go through that report. Linda is at training as well as Randy, so Sam's graciously stepped in to give you the report.
See how that goes. Mr. Chair, sorry, I don't know how long this will take, but Mr. Villa suggested that Ms. Blackman had a meeting. Could we skip to that and then go back?
It's going to take that much time.
Okay, all right, great. Sorry for the interruption.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, the expenditure report is from the period of October 18th through November 7th. The total is $1,215,725.93. That includes accounts payable portion of $954,809.86. Also included is the payroll, pay period 22, along with a retro back pay or special paycheck of $260,916.07. And the items that exceeded $10,000 included the Ascent Aviation, which is for a jet fuel purchase, $18,000. Right Express Fleet Service, which is our fuel provider, our fuel cards. So those are September 2019 fuel purchases, New Mexico Fire contractor, which did a fill station for the SCBA tanks at the Tyrone Volunteer Fire Department. Stantec Consulting Services, which is the progress billing on the parking lot engineering and design. And New Mexico State University, which is our, actually it's a third quarter cooperative extension contribution. Bohannon Houston, progress billing on the airport road. Holt Martinez, this is September 2019, legal fees. And again, Ascent Aviation for the jet fuel purchase. Caterpillar Financial Services, November 2019 equipment lease. And also Armstrong Floor and Wall, which is for the Correcaminos flooring replacement that was done there in their offices. Bohannon Houston, again, progress billing on Fleming Tank Road drainage improvements. And Vital Core Health Strategies for the November 2019 medical management services for the inmates. And Summit Food Services, September 2019 inmate food service. If there's any questions, I'll try and answer those for you. If not, I'll get you some answers.
So how many attorneys do we pay? I mean, I know we have that with Holt and Martinez PC. Do we pay any other attorneys if we go to them for reach out for any information?
As I've explained in the past, we have a small contract that does not exceed $20,000 for Dina Holcomb. She's an employment law attorney in Albuquerque. We've had that contract for a couple of years.
So whatever the total is of this law firm, we add $20,000 to that also because of other attorneys.
That's the not exceed. We haven't even come close to spending $20,000 with Ms. Holcomb.
But we still add it, still money, right?
Yes, it's in the budget.
Thank you.
In past year, could we judge by past years how much we're likely to spend on that?
I can send you how much we've paid Ms. Holcomb.
I didn't know if you, top of your head, maybe $5,000-6,000 a year.
Probably less than 5.
Probably less than $5,000.
But I'll send
so
you
that's, I mean, that's the
exactly.
real money. The $20,000 is the budget.
Budget, okay. Just wasn't sure how that was working.
Yeah,
so
no, for sure.
And this month's bill for Holt is much less.
And we occasionally have encountered other legal fees, like when we were dealing with the hospital, we had some legal fees associated with that.
Well, and I would just point out also that with salary and benefits, our annual attorney expenditures for in-house attorneys probably somewhere around $125,000 a year, correct?
At least.
Yeah, at least. I think I'd figured 135 at one point.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
The only reason I was asking because I wasn't sure and I've never really seen it on here. So I'm trying to learn the attorneys.
Because these are kind of
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, no, that's great. It's totally worth us keeping an eye on.
Yep.
Any other questions?
And it's probably down in here somewhere.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but it is in there somewhere.
It's in there somewhere.
Somewhere.
No, I'm good, thank you.
Any other questions, Commissioner?
No, good, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item under new business, item D, consideration of November 5th, 2019 local election canvass.
Madam Chair, Madam Manager, I just need to say really quick, I saw the clerk in the hallway, and she asked me to remind everybody that we need to go by the clerk's office before the meeting on Thursday and individually look at the election canvass. So
Thank you.
consider yourselves reminded about that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next section, agreements. Item E, consideration of amendment number 1 to agreement A1924, project 20DGE10 of local driving while intoxicated, otherwise known as LDWI grant agreements. And he's already there and ready.
Sorry. I had to breathe in it for a minute. Good morning, Commissioners, Mr. Chair. So this is just the money, distribution from fiscal year 19 was not all spent due to my miserly ways with money and purchasing some items from the year before. So we get to reapply for that, and it goes into our grant.
And so this is just leftover money from last year, and I'm going to put $3,000 more towards enforcement. And then in that prevention is the $5,376, which will be used for radio advertisements for Corey Cantinas, which kind of brings me to hers. I have a intern with me from the social work department at WNMU, and part of when we sat down and said, what are you going to do this year, was an evaluation of Corey Cantinas. Because as you see, and ridership has been down. And so I have pretty much been able to, in my mind, correlate it directly with not running ads. I'm not sure if you remember that DFA put a moratorium on us for about 2.5 years that we couldn't spend any of our money on radio ads at all. They've since reversed that, and now I can, so I had to put in a budget, and so that's why I got that in. So I'm going to have her do an evaluation that will put in writing that correlation. When we quit running radio ads or run less, ridership tends to go down on Corey Cantinas. So, and when we run them, it goes back up. So that's what we'll be evaluating. And I think I can definitely show that and hopefully increase ridership again, because it has gone way down. And I can send you each that report that has because Corey Cantinas, they send me the weekend riders every year. And I've been tracking it since the very, very beginning, so I have it all the years. A little update on our prevention program. We're in about 14 classes right now doing evidence-based prevention in elementary schools, middle schools. I just finished up driver's ed, two schools, Cliff and Silver High. Cliff has 1 class, Silver High has 3, and at Cobury I start 2 classes in December. So I do the 6-hour alcohol education part. As for our probation or compliance program, we have about 130 people on supervised probation right now. As you know, we drug test them. We've just recently got one of our guys, we got in Roxanne Signs. I have to commend her. She does a really, really great job in working with our clients and finding them when they need inpatient treatment. Normally, it's kind of up to when we go for a probation violation and sentence them. It's generally up to their attorney to find them that, but the courts have found that Roxanne does a much better job at that, and she does. And so one reported today, we have another bed for somebody else next week. We just released one, and we've got another one coming up. So I have to commend her. She does a really great job in finding these people help. And we generally use the one up in McKinley County. She finds them a safe ride. She spends all this time sitting with them, getting them the ride up there and all that. So she does a really great job. And I stand for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
I do have one, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much, Cindy. It seems like this data that you've collected about ridership offers a pretty interesting opportunity. And I wonder if you've tried to correlate it to citations for DWI or accidents, things like that.
The crashes, yes. Citations, no, because we don't do it that way, because you never know how many officers are going to be out there. You could have, less officers. So arrests, citations, and that are strictly, it just depends how many officers are out there. But crash data is what I use. And I have... Friday and Saturday nights are the peak time where there's alcohol-involved car crashes. Hours during those times that Corey Cantinas runs are much lower than the rest of the state. So yes, I've done that because DFA doesn't consider ride programs evidence-based. But I was determined to make ours evidence-based. And so I did that by collecting that data. And so ours is evidence-based.
So you referenced lower than the rest of the state,
yes,
which is a great part of the evidence base.
Yes.
And I was referencing time, so that the period when we were advertising and we had higher ridership, are we able to show fewer accidents during that time compared to later when the DFA said we could not advertise?
Yes.
In ridership? So that's also changed.
Yes.
That would be a fascinating graph to see if you're able to put that together.
I'll update it. I did it last year. I'll do it again.
Well, that's awesome. I should hope they will change their attitude about whether that's evidence-based or not.
So. Ours is considered evidence-based because of my data collected. So
awesome.
I'm kind of a data nerd.
Sure. Yes, ma'am.
So I think the conversation that just happened is precisely why things like the commendation letter happened and why we appreciate what you do in that program so much. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your initiative and your passion for the work you do.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Agreed, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cindy.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, just so you know too, the cantinas isn't just cantinas for nightclubs or to the bars. You can go from house to house, and you can also use it to, it's still a public service, whether you're going to a facility or not. You can still go to Walmart on the bus on Friday night. You can, go to a friend's house or whatever it is you're doing. So it's just not cantinas with sending them to the bar and then back home. It's still a public transportation service through that process as well. So, I think the advertisement will help. I think it's important that we do that. But again, it's just not the public transportation system at those times are also for public transportation no matter where you go within the district.
So just to clarify, because the Corey Cantino's bus is on the road, then at those times, then it can be used for anything else.
That is correct. Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Edwards, that is correct.
Yes.
So that should be part of the advertising.
Yeah, and I have to be real careful because my money's for specifically for that. But yeah, we're unique kind of in the state for that because it's a public bus. We can't shut it down to anybody else that wants to go somewhere, to Walmart or the movies.
It expands what we're offering to the public in terms of transportation.
It does, but I try not to.
Got it.
You might want to coordinate with Randy.
Yeah, coordinate with Randy.
I think that's, Mr. Chairman, I think that's basically what we really need to do is have more advertisement, not so much from the DWI program, but maybe from cantinas itself and put a budget in there for us to do advertising as well. So,
So that's point to point, right? People can order a pickup and a drop off.
Right.
They don't have to be on a route.
No. It's on-demand service. Yes. And they'll pick them up. They'll take them from a house to a house. A lot of programs, when we first started it had been a dream for quite a while, and we had people, let me tell you, people were freaking out when we first were going to do it because they thought, oh my God, you're helping people drink more, you're doing this, what if there are fights, and you need to put police officers on the bus, and I was like, no, we're not putting police officers on the bus. People won't ride it. And we went to every bar and did trainings with them with SID and just reminded people that the bar owners and that don't kick somebody out of your bar for fighting and call Corey Cantinas to transport them home because they're going to start a fight on the bus also. It was things like that, and really the bus drivers being trained to keep, and we've really not had any problems. People just were freaked out at first, but it's been a great program, and other programs have tried to model it throughout the state, and I still always get people questioning and stuff. We're not allowed to fully fund our programs, fully fund a safe ride, so that's why we charge, and we get money back, because then it's not fully funded, it's partially funded. So.
And it's $5 a ride, is that?
$3.50 each way. Yeah, it's still pretty cheap. We haven't raised that price in a while.
Yeah, that's remarkably reasonable.
Yeah, it's very reasonable.
It's a lot cheaper than the DWI, I heard it.
It certainly is. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, resolutions. Item F, consideration of resolution R 1968 supporting New Mexico County's 2020 legislative priorities. This is a resolution that comes before you each year supporting the legislative priorities established by the Board of Directors for New Mexico Counties. Their priorities this year consist of 3 items under House Bill 2 appropriations. The first one being Detention Reimbursement Fund. This is to create or increase funding under the Detention Facility Reimbursement Act. Last year, there was only an appropriation of $2.3 million for every county detention center in the state. This is a reimbursement to house state prisoners. There was a lawsuit that happened back in 2007 that resulted in an appropriation of about $7 million. As you can see, that has dwindled over the years. So we're asking for increase in that funding. The costs calculated, we send in data to New Mexico counties, and they've calculated the cost for counties to house state prisoners each year is $8.4 million, and we get $2.3 appropriated, so there's a big gap. The other thing that we counties are supporting is creating a line item in DFA for they're asking for $750,000 to reimburse sheriff's offices to provide transportation of state prisoners. That's another unfunded mandate where sheriff's departments are tasked with transporting prisoners to and from state facilities with no reimbursement. Also asking for a designated revenue mechanism for EMS funding. They're requesting a $5 million appropriation. Currently there isn't, there hasn't been a set budget each year for EMS funding. So we apply each year for funding and hope that we get it. So this is just to increase that. Counties across the state are struggling with being able to fully fund EMS departments under the amount of money that we get. And you guys have seen some of those applications. It really doesn't amount to much for what they do. So those are all House Bill 2 appropriation requests. Also looking to increase distributions under the Law Enforcement Protection Fund. That hasn't changed in many years. The funding mechanism for that has stayed very stagnant. Behavioral health.
What is the amount? I forget, or I don't know, since you said it hasn't changed, per certified officer.
I don't remember. We get $20,000 as a base amount for our size county, and then it's, how much is it per officer?
Per officer,
I don't remember. What's your annual appropriation now?
I'm sorry?
How much do you get annually?
This year we got $32,000.
So if 20 of that is a base, and for his staff, it doesn't amount to much.
500 per officer or something?
I think it's a little less than that.
It'd be like 575 or something per officer, certified officers.
And so you only get funding for certified officers. So they're asking for that distribution to be increased.
And since we're on that topic, and I appreciate the chair's question, are they asking for it to be increased without an appropriation to the fund? So they just believe the money is in that fund that would enable this increase to happen?
So it's a special fund, and I'm not sure exactly what mechanism they're asking for. It's
feel odd endorsing a recommendation. I have no idea how they're going to fund it.
I can find out.
Okay.
So what is that used for specifically?
Training and purchase of equipment.
Okay.
And it's very specific. There's a set of statutes that are specific to what it can be utilized for. It's not just a slush fund that's handed to the sheriff for him to spend on whatever he wants. So particular equipment, training, vehicles, but you really can't buy much with $30-something thousand a year. So
it's not general operating.
Any other questions? It's a special fund.
And do you know what contributes to that fund? I may have missed it just now. Like,
I don't. It's a funding mechanism that comes to the state. It's a special fund that we get,
so
and we have to account
excise
for
taxes, some are severance taxes, things like that.
I really don't know.
Okay, fair enough.
But the statute's there.
I can look it up.
Behavioral health. They're asking for expanded funding to HSD to provide behavioral health services for adult and juvenile offenders housed in county detention centers. This is all geared towards reducing recidivism. This is one of the reasons for the pilot project that we are participating in. They'll be looking at our successes and our failures as that project rolls out. Every county in the state struggles with this. We've struggled with it for years, and we're finally getting some attention. The last item is PERA solvency. New Mexico counties are, fully supporting the solvency of the PERA program, obviously, but opposing increases to the employer's rates. PRA employer rates are some of the highest in the nation, and our retirement program is unfunded at this point. So ultimately what happens if that cost keeps getting put on local governments, then you eventually end up raising taxes or cutting something else in order to pay for that. So it's not that there's a little bit of confusion in Raul's explanation of this. It's not that they're not fully supporting PERA and the solvency. They don't think that it should be on the backs of county government to pay for that.
So that's what I was going to ask, was that the confusion, my confusion of last time? Is this piece right? Okay.
Yes.
When we were talking about the manager's contract, you mean?
No, about when our
When
assessor,
Larry was talking.
his presentation and...
Okay.
After his last.
So this right here sort of clears it up for me better.
Right.
Thanks.
Okay. So.
Yeah, it's all right. Because it does actually relate to our conversation about the manager's contract as well. In that conversation, we discussed how the county pays 75% of the employee's contribution. And that's a policy that is across the board, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know how many other counties do that, but it seems inconsistent for us to have that policy and also to complain that the state is charging counties too much and it should charge employees more when we're already buffering employees from that.
And that's something that you may want to look at. But yes, Grant County has a phenomenal benefit package, getting 100% of your health insurance paid for, as well as 75% of your para.
Of your personal contribution to para, plus the part that the employer is already obligated to pay.
Correct.
So I don't know if I've explained myself on this point, but do you know how many other counties do that?
Pay 75%?
Or pay any portion of the employee's contribution?
I'm not aware. The county I came from didn't.
But I think
you pay.
there's a few, I believe, because that's part of their negotiations, and they consider that a raise in their
And they should.
contracts.
And they should.
Right.
Yeah, it's a benefit.
When
It's
Tom
just,
Silver did it, I guess here they do it. So there's other probably entities that will do that, and I think that's more part of a negotiation, contract negotiation type
Yeah.
of what I've seen.
yeah, that makes sense to me. What doesn't make sense is that we would do that and then we would complain that the state is requiring employers to pay too much.
I think
Because we're voluntarily paying a lot more
I
than
think
we have to.
part of the problem is that it's been well known for many, many years, even before any of you coming on the board, that PERA was in trouble,
Yeah.
and they've chose to do nothing year after year after year. They can.
If this resolution said you need to do something, I would support it without question.
It does say you need to do something, but it's saying that you need to exhaust all other efforts before you come to the counties again, because they've raised the county's portion many times over the years. So what they're saying is, and the point that the financial officer from NM Counties has said is, you need to exhaust all other efforts to get this fund solvent before you come to the counties and say you need to pay more money. They're just actually pushing back and saying, it's not always the county's backs that you should go to. It's look at all other options before you come and say you have to contribute more. I understand where you're coming from, but I think it's just a little bit of a pushback because it's just another one of those things that continue to happen is the state always looks to the counties. I guess they think we have a magic money tree out back. But this is just another, please look at everything else before you ask for us to contribute more.
And everything else means either changing the benefit formula or charging employees more.
Or maybe look at their investment policy. I mean, there's a lot of issues.
Well, you have to look at the one that comes to mind is the raises that they just gave, without board approval from what I understand. So, I mean...
You mean the COLAs?
No.
They're
director.
They're director.
There's a lot in
Staff
the news.
raises.
There's a lot in the news if you want to know what's going on. Anyway.
Okay. Can't imagine that adds up to much in terms of the enormous pension fund, but.
It added to quite a bit, so.
It has to do with performance and making sure that things are, there's a lot of news stories. I'll just leave it alone.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
So I'd like to go back to the behavioral health piece, and I'm sort of relying on your knowledge about what's happening within the demonstration project and that sort of stuff. But in my role with Healthy Kids, Healthy Communities, I am currently facilitating a series of conversations on pediatric health care in Grant County. And one of the things that has come up in every conversation to a large extent is the lack of mental health care for children and how that impacts the schools, and what's happening. So my real question is, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to expand funding for behavioral health to look at recidivism and that sort of thing if we're not looking at other areas that feed into this. It's all connected. And so my question really is not about this specifically as a priority, but about what you know about how much HSD and PED are talking to each other about the fact that what's happening and how PED funds this kind of stuff affects what's happening in HSD.
I am not up to speed on where those conversations are. My focus is how it's affecting detention center and our budget. I fully understand how that all plays together, and that needs. But I can't answer that question for you. I'm not.
So maybe my question is really about: is the New Mexico counties as an organization thinking about these kinds of things on that kind of global level, or are they just looking at a narrow stripe of it?
I think we're focusing, and I say we, I think counties are focusing on what is affecting them, even though yes, globally it is, but you have to work on what you have some control over. We don't have control over PED. We don't have control over the schools. We don't have. We can have those conversations, but I wouldn't say that it's just that we're only focused on this. I think everybody gets the whole big picture. We get a lot of invitations to webinars and things of that tie all to that talk about the trauma-informed, the Tiger programs for youth and kids that go through trauma and the behavioral health issues. But I think it's like you focus on what you know that you can. Yeah, it may seem like you're only looking at this, but I think we know that the whole big picture is there, but we need to focus on what's hitting our budget, and that is what's killing our budget.
So I understand that from our perspective, but I really want to know that New Mexico counties is, they're representing counties at the legislature, and I think, it's important that the legislature understand that their decisions in other areas affect this as well. That's my point.
And I think that perhaps maybe New Mexico counties relies on organizations that represent the school systems to advocate and lobby on their behalf, just like New Mexico counties do for us. I don't know that. I can't speak for them. I'm not on their board. I don't. But I think they probably feel that they have an advocacy group that works on their behalf. But I do know those conversations happen, but I can't tell you that New Mexico counties is going to be working on that actively.
So, okay, fair enough. But I think the point still is that until we look at these things on a global view and how they're interconnected, we're going to continue to try to fund these things in isolation of each other and not address the whole picture.
So, behavioral health, that's something that definitely needs help, but looking at this wording, I'm a little, because it says services should include targeted individualized intervention that addresses detainees' behavioral health needs while incarcerated and connect them to supportive housing, public assistance, medical and mental health care, and employment training as needed immediately upon release. So incarcerated can be, that means a lot to me. Incarcerated can mean 2 days, 3 days, a week. I mean, and I'm not an expert. I guess this is a question more, or I probably need to research it more, talk to somebody that's in behavioral health. But the incarcerated sort of like, how much treatment can you give, or can you look at somebody that's in there 3-4 days compared to somebody that's in there long term? And if you're in there long term, shouldn't it be going more towards, our Albuquerque where they're incarcerated 6 months and all that? So that's one question. But I don't know if anybody can answer here. The other thing is, and I think Commissioner Brown answered that for me, so the best or the most effective way to help with this is through resolution or coming up with resolutions for the legislative session in support of these?
This is what this is. It's a resolution supporting these priorities.
Okay.
So, but to try and answer your question, so it's county's responsibility to address behavioral health needs of an individual the minute they're incarcerated, whether they're there for a few hours or a few months. And it depends on the time that they're there is how they're treated, and the whole goal. And I mean, when you look nationwide to, if data is showing that if you are able to connect individuals upon their release with services, keep them going to their appointments, make sure that they're making it to the pharmacy to get their prescriptions, that they're getting, their Medicaid reinstated, that if they're homeless, you try to help them. If they're finding those things once they're released, the chances of them coming back into the facility are reduced. That's the whole goal around all of this. That's why there's nationwide studies looking at all of these things. That's why we're participating and stepping up. That's why we're participating in this intervention program. Is if you can provide a wraparound model of care from the time they're incarcerated to the time they're released, and make sure that they're handed off to the right individuals that can get them the help they need, then perhaps they become a productive member of society and not right back into our jails.
And I totally understand that. We have great projects. I'm just getting hung up in the wording while incarcerated. And then it does want to connect them, but no, I mean, that's fine. That's what I'm getting hung on, is those two words, while incarcerated.
So isn't one of the issues we have is that we have a lot of people incarcerated in the county detention center that are pre-adjudicated, that are in there for up to 364 days, is that correct?
Correct, and many times it's longer than that. If they're waiting on trial, or they're waiting on, hearings, or it can be longer than that.
Where am I getting that limit of
364 is a lot of times they can be sentenced to 364 days, so that they don't become a state prisoner, and that burden falls on the counties.
So if they haven't been sentenced,
It's a statutory thing. You can't sentence them more than 364.
365, they go to the state. So we'll sentence them 364, and they're ours.
Well, Mr. Chair, on the behavioral health issue and relative to Commissioner Edwards' comments, I think her comments are very relevant. I support these legislative priorities, but I don't think I think they're a start, but they're not all inclusive. And my wife teaches elementary music and to several hundred kids each year, and it's heartbreaking for her to pick out children who have been traumatized at home, who come to school already jaded, and then she's followed some of those kids for 20 years, And she can predict with some reliability the trouble that they're going to run into in later life, and it's just heartbreaking when you can pick out a first grader, and sometimes just because of the way the name that their parents gave them, it's just they're just on a tragic course, and how we address that, it's not addressed here. How we address that is an interesting question. I think we need to keep work. Society needs to keep working towards that somehow. But I don't think the answers are here. But I still support this as a start. It's obviously not all inclusive.
And I suppose that's how I would have answered your question about the while incarcerated as well. We're not asking for the world. We're asking for one piece.
One piece.
Yeah.
One small piece, and it's not enough, but it's a start.
Anything else on that? Okay.
Moving on to the Grant County health care claims, item H, approve or deny October 2019 health claims in the amount of $20,012.47. Bernadette?
We skipped.
Oh my goodness, sorry. I didn't mark it off. I'll back up. Item G, award or reject RFP 20-03 Forensic Assertive Community Treatment Service Provider. This is an RFP that was released. This is a component of the intervention demonstration project for this is called FACT. We had one response from HMS, and it's our recommendation that you award this RFP to HMS, as it is a component of the IDP project. It's state funded, doesn't come out of our pockets, and it's just another demonstration of whether or not we can successfully implement something like this in our community or not, and identify what the challenges are around that program. So sorry about that. Any questions? Now we can go to the Health Claims Board. Sorry.
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners of the Board. After further review and research, I suggest that we approve for your consideration the October 2019 health claims.
How many were there? The ambulance or just hospital?
Yes. There were 5 regular Taylor Regional Medical Center claims and 2 ambulance claims for a total of $20,012.47.
Any questions? No. Also on your agenda, wasn't sure the direction of the board, but we rolled the items from your special meeting of November 7th to this regular meeting. Not sure what your preference is there. And that concludes your agenda.
Thank you. Moving on to the next item on the agenda, Commissioner reports. Commissioner Edwards, you have a report?
Yes. So I would like to know, I would like for us to discuss the executive session that's on the Thursday meeting, because we had a special meeting scheduled to address this, which we decided to do in our, so at the last meeting, regular meeting, we had an executive session. During that executive session, we scheduled a special meeting because we didn't have enough time to finish the work in that executive session. That special meeting was canceled for good reason. And so my question is, it seems to me like we ought to, rather than having this executive session, we ought to be talking about rescheduling the special meeting. That's, and I'm happy to discuss that.
Yeah, and so where we were at on that, it was Bernadette relayed the message to me that I might want to be prepared to conduct that special meeting. I thought we needed Chairman Ponce there. I called Commissioner Edwards and we agreed to cancel the special meeting. And I asked the county manager to go ahead and put that on at the next available opportunity, which was Thursday. Understanding that the commission, we might decide that we didn't have enough time. But also my wishing to have it on there was to get it done. So now whether the board wants to do it then or at another special meeting times.
So I agree. I think, one of the things that we talked about at the last executive session was the desire to get this done. On the other hand, what we also discussed was the fact that we didn't have enough time. And so I think at this point, what we need to do is check in with everyone and make sure that we have that if we have the executive session on Thursday, it's not a situation where we get partially done with the conversation and then have to stop because somebody needs to leave.
I would like to try to do it on Thursday if we can. I understand your concern. We'll have to check in with Commissioner Salas since he's not able to be here. But I'd much rather do it on Thursday if we possibly can.
That would be my preference also, and I do have the time to do that.
Do we have the time to do it Thursday?
Yeah.
You, Commissioner Brown? No, you have it, right, Commissioner?
My next chronological commitment would be at 2:30 on Thursday afternoon.
We have a relatively short meeting.
I would think we could do that.
Yeah.
I would think so.
I think we should work it in, yeah.
I think we pretty much discuss everything that's on the agenda. So I think we're good there to do that and then go into the executive session, but whatever your wishes are, we can go with that.
Let's try unless Commissioner Salas tells us he can't.
How long would you envision, let's just guess, the regular meeting?
Well, see, I think that's
the regular meeting.
Oh, the regular meeting.
Yeah. You surprised both of us.
No.
Hour and a half?
Hour, maybe.
Hour.
I was thinking we should,
45 minutes.
unless someone has a problem, that we should get it done in 45 minutes to an hour.
I think you're right.
I think we could, and I think if we run it, I think we can get our regular meeting done in about 45 minutes, I would think.
Okay.
I will try.
We'll try, but that's remarkably optimistic.
I can already look at the...
Well, we don't have any presentations, right?
No.
The two members of the audience and the press are both smiling. I don't know if that means they don't believe we can get it done, or they're happy that we are going to get it done in 45 minutes. Okay.
Okay, and I did have one more thing in my commissioner report. So I don't actually often look at the county news in great depth.
Shocking.
But there is something in, I believe, the most recent issue, or maybe the second to the most recent issue of County News, that I would like the commission to pay attention to. And that is that two new bills were recently introduced in the Senate that would amend the Medicaid inmate exclusion policy under the Social Security Act to protect the right of pretrial detainees to their federal health benefits. This is an issue that, as long as we're talking about what's happening in the detention center and how much it's costing counties and all that sort of thing, this is something that we should be supporting and we should be asking our federal delegation to support. And so I would like to encourage us to pass a resolution in support of this legislation and make it a point to call on our federal delegation to support this legislation as well.
I think that's a great idea. I thought you were going to talk about the article right below that where that guy's collecting all the county pins. I vote we send him one of our pins for his collection.
What is the legislation specifically called?
It is called, it's to amend the Medicaid inmate exclusion policy.
Thank you.
So current law prohibits the use of federal funding from Medicaid, Medicare, and CHIP for inmates in prison and jail. And it also makes no distinction, and I thought this was really interesting, also goes back to what our challenges are as a county. It also makes no distinction between pre-adjudicated detainees and convicted inmates.
Right.
And so one of our really big challenges is the pre-adjudicated. And so I just think we need to be paying really close attention to this. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's really good. I'm glad you brought it up.
Anything else, Commissioner? Commissioner Billings, report.
Yeah, just really similar to that and similar to what Commissioner Edwards was talking about. We just got an email, and I probably don't want to waste everyone's time trying to find it, but it's about kids, the cost to society of traumatized kids. It's in the Santa Fe, New Mexican, and I think I just got the email this morning. I'll be reading that. Might be some good information in there. I don't have anything further.
So if I may so the email is from an organization called AnaAge8.org, and they're having a conference in Las Cruces on December the 3rd. And one of the things that Charlene and I have had a little bit of conversation on this, one of the things that organization is doing is trying to get counties to organize around a concept of 100%. Counties looking at trauma and how it affects all the rest of the things that are happening in the county. So thanks for bringing that up, Commissioner Billings.
Thank you. You done?
That's it, yeah.
Commissioner Brown?
No, thank you.
No report. For me, I really just want to thank everybody in the county and everybody that, with my dad's passing, sort of a little shell shock there with losing my mom in June and then my dad, but I really want to thank everyone for their kind words, prayers, phone calls, messages. It makes it a little easier when you go through that, and people that attended the services. So it's a little shocking, but it is what it is. Can't question it. So we just move on. But that's part of the reason that special meeting was canceled. And thank you, Commissioner Billings, Commissioner Edwards, and our commissioners here. So I just really want to say thanks and thank you. And that's it. And okay.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.